How are you today, Nick?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Would you agree that there are many acts of foolishness throughout this story?
Why, yes, I'd say so.
What foolish things have you noticed?
Some foolish things I've seen were Gatsby throwing these massive, elaborate parties, and he wouldn't even go to them. Many people were having affairs right underneath people's noses, and they just were blatantly ignoring it. And hit-and-run accidents. I mean, that's pretty foolish as itself right there.
Out of all of that, let's start off with Gatsby not going to his parties. Why do you feel like that was a foolish thing?
Well, for starters, I mean, he's spending so much money on these parties, and he's just letting people use him for these, and he's not even showing up to go.
Well, how exactly are they using him?
As I've said before, he's throwing these parties, and people are just using him to go and have a great time, and he's just looking for his dream girl.
So basically, what's foolish of Gatsby is that he's wasting all of his money throwing these parties just to get one girl?
Yeah, he met this girl named Daisy before he went off to the war, and at the time he fell deeply in love with her, and I believe he still is right now.
Well, I mean, that is a pretty foolish way for him to be spending his money like that. Why throw all these parties with a bunch of people if you're only trying to reconnect with one person?
Yeah, he's basically obsessing over this girl he met before the war, and throwing these parties and foolishly throwing his money away just to meet her instead of going and meeting another girl who he could, settle down and have a nice family with.
Now, you mentioned that there were many affairs throughout the story. Could you give me some more information about that?
Yeah, I knew about the affairs. They were mainly between Tom and Myrtle, Daisy and Gatsby, and myself and Jordan. But I didn't really feel the need to tell them because it's not my place to.
Well, did you happen to tell anyone that you knew about them?
Well, I just didn't feel it was my duty to tell. I mean, I didn't want to be a rat and, ruin someone's life. I figured let time tell and nature run its course.
Well, I mean, that's pretty foolish of you then, because you knew about the affairs and you were around everyone who were committing the affairs, but yet you didn't really tell them because of your own selfish reasons. Now, I mean, that's pretty foolish and selfish at the same time, but you're being foolish with your feelings of not telling anybody.
Yes, I'll admit not saying anything was very foolish, but when I look back, I wish I would have said something because maybe it would have saved Myrtle's life.
I mean, it is foolish. They're running around doing all these bad things, and, everyone has a right to know about it.
Looking back, they did deserve to know, but I didn't feel it was my place to tell them.
I mean, that's understandable, but if you were being cheated on, like half the people in the story, I'm sure you would want to know.
Yes, I would want someone to tell me, but then again, I would much rather find out on my own because it's my business and I really don't want someone prying around in my business.
Now, the third thing you mentioned was an accident involving Myrtle. Do you think what happened with that was done in a foolish manner?
Yes, she overreacted about, moving out west, and it was foolish of her to run outside and just run into the street. She could have went out on the porch and cooled off out there, but running in the street is just plain foolish.
But do you also think that the way Daisy reacted was in a foolish manner by the way she just kept driving and didn't bother to stop?
I'd say it was foolish, but getting into a car accident is very frightening. The first time it happens, you don't know what to do. It's just traumatizing. So I can imagine she would overreact.
So basically, her own feelings led her to perform foolish actions.
I'd say it was foolish, but, she could have also been scared, too.
So basically, she should have stayed and see what actually happened instead of driving away with Gatsby.
Yes, maybe your life could have been saved, but, we never know. After all, you only live once.
And neither one of us were there to see what actually happened. Only Gatsby was there, but he couldn't be with us today. So we have an overdramatic reenactment on what actually could have happened based on our knowledge. see. Well, thank you, Nick, for spending time with us today. You really helped give us information of the topic of foolishness in the story.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.